We are recording already.
Good.
Yud Daled.
Yes. Yud Daled. Well, let's start on Yud Gimel Amud Beis, the Mishnah.
The Mishnah.
The Mishnah on Yud Gimel Amud Beis. Oh, by the way, so there's no Daf. I have surgery tomorrow morning, a couple of emergency surgeries in the morning. So we will have a Navi Shir. We'll finish, God willing, a Sefer Yoshua, and then we'll do the Daf Yomi at 9 o'clock afterwards.
Okay.
Don't have any other alternative.
All right.
Mishnah. Hakoirish Amru. So we've been learning all along that in order to correct a mavui, a three-sided mavui to be able to carry there, we paskin you need either a koreh, a cross beam, or a lechi, a side beam. So what's the criteria of this koreh? It's got to be rechavik de lekabel ariach. It has to be wide enough that you could put a brick on it. And the va'ariach hatzila v'enesh shlo tefachim. So most bricks were 3 by 3 tefachim, and this is a half brick, which is 3 by 1.5. That means it was three tefachim long and 1.5 wide, and you put the length along the koreh so that a half a tefach sticks out. If the koreh is 1 tefach, so a half of the brick would stick out on one side of the koreh, and half of the tefach would stick up on the other side. You can balance the brick on that kind of koreh. Right? A koreh, all it needs to be is 1 tefach wide to be able to accept this kind of a riach along its width. So, according to Tanakama, not only does it have to be wide enough, it has to be made of a material that can support the brick. So, for example, if the material was out of straw or out of paper and it wouldn't hold the brick, according to Tanakama, it's not a good koreh. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rechav Aval Pi She'ein Bria. He says as long as it's a tefach wide, even if it's a material that can't hold the brick, it's still okay. For example, Haisa Shel Kash V'Shel Kanim. If the koreh was made out of straw or reed, which would not hold up a brick, we use a principle called royin. Royin is like a fiction. We estimate. If royin osokilu shematechas, we view it as if it was metal. So no matter what material it is, if a metal beam of that width would hold the brick, then any material would hold the brick as well, as long as it's wide enough. Similarly, akuma, if the koreh was bent, we view it as if it's straight. Let's say it was a round pole, and which couldn't hold a brick. We see it as if it was square, right, or flat. That's Rabbi Yehuda. And then, as an aside, he tells us, how do I know that if you put a round pole, that its diameter is 1 tefach? If its diameter is 3, if its circumference is 3, its diameter is 1. So we know it's pi r squared. It's really pi radius, right? 2 pi r. I'm sorry, 2 pi r. The circumference is circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. Pi is 3.14 something. It's not 3, but Chazal rounded pi down to 3. Tefach. So the Gemara says, how can you tell me that the beam has to be a tefach, has to be tefach u'mechza? You just told me that a brick is 3 by 1.5, so the core should also be 1.5. So versus kivan derachal the kabel tefach. So since if you have a beam that's a tefach wide, and you stick this kind of brick on it, and a half a tefach sticks off on one end, and half a tefach you sort of put some cement on the other side. If it came on, it can stay there. It's not a problem. That whatever koira you use has to be physically capable of holding the brick. It's not, you don't use this principle of royin, that if you use something that's not heavy, that can't hold the brick, we estimate that it's metal. No, if the koira cannot hold it, it's not a good koira. Now let's say you were not placing the koira directly on the wall of the mavui, but you're using a yatad, like a peg that you would use for a tent, like a tent peg, and you place the beam on these pegs. The pegs themselves do not have to be of a material that could accept a brick. But even the peg holding up the koira has to be strong enough to accept the brick itself. And the Gra, the Rambam, the Rashba, paskin it like Rav Chisda. As long as the peg can hold the koira, it's good enough. And the Rosh, the Mordechai, the Ramah are mekel. Ulamaisa, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, they're mekel. And some are machmir. The Mishnah Berurah is machmir. So we can see it's a machlokas poskim about the pegs that are required to hold up the thing. And we poskin that the beam has to be physically capable of holding up the brick. We don't use we don't. That's how the Mishnah Berurah poskins. And it's not just the Yerushalmi says that this beam has to hold up many bricks from the whole length until you get to 3 tefachim from the side of the wall. So it's not just one brick. So we're very machmir, it seems like, in terms of the quality of this koira. On Rav Sheshes, Yiniach Korah Gabi Mavoi. So you put a cross beam. Uparas ala machzeles. You hung a mat over the beam. Vigbiyam in akarka shlosha, and the mat doesn't reach to within 3 tefachim of the ground. So koira ein kan mechitza. You can't see the koira, so it doesn't serve as a koira, and it's not a mechitza either, because since goats, gedim boikim bo, can go underneath the 3 tefachim, where the mechitza, if it goes down to within 3 tefachim, you use lavu. But since you don't have within 3 tefachim, it's not a koira, it's not a mechitza. Koira ein kan da hamichsa. It's covered, you can't see it. Mechitza ein kan davle mechitza shagdoim boikim bo. It's a wall, like for example, a sukkah, whose walls do not come down to within 3 tefachim from the ground. It's not a kosher sukkah because little animals can come into the sukkah. It's not considered that you have a full-fledged mechitza. On Rabbanon, koire hayotze mikosel zeh ve'eino nogas bekosel zeh. Right? There's a beam that extends in a mavui from one end of the wall to the other, but it doesn't reach the other wall. Or let's say you have 2 beams coming out from each wall. They don't touch each other. There's some distance, there's some gap between them in the middle. As long as they reach within 3 tefachim of each other, that's whether side to side or up and down. Shlosha, if they're more than 3 tefachim away from each other, then it's not good. Rav Shimon Gamliel Oimer, Pachos me Arba in Tzarech Levi Karacheres. Arba Tzarech Levi, he holds, remember, Lavud goes up to 4. So we hold like the Shulchan Aruch Paskins, like the Tanakama, not like Rosh Gamliel. That it's as long as it's within 3 tefachim, we hold lavud is 3 tefachim, not 4 tefachim. We don't paskin like Rosh Gamliel. V'chein shtei koros hamatimos. Koros hamatimos are like twin koros, like next to each other. So lo bazuk let's say each one was a half a tefach. So each one in their own right could not accept the beam. But if you put them together, they accept the beam, the brick. If you can place the width of a brick on these 2 parallel beams, like if they don't hold the brick and can't put them close enough to do that, then it's not good. As long as you can put the length of a brick, so that means they could be further away. They could be even 3 tefachim away. Shulchan Aruch Paskins, shtei koros dakos, if they're very thin and they're next to each other and each one of them cannot hold the brick, if they're within 3 tefachim of each other, they're considered like together, and then it's good. That's the way the Rambam holds. And v'yesharim shetzrichos yos b'toch tefach. That's like the beginning first sheet in the Gemara. That's on the Tosfos, the Tur, and the Shulchan Aruch Harav Paskins lahachmir. So it's a machlokas poskim regarding that. Okay. Let's say these twin beams were above and below each other, not side by side. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Roinas al Yona ke'ili hilamata. We use a fictional concept. We place them next to each other. Except as long as these beams are not outside of the normal restricted area. It can't be higher than 20 amas. It can't be lower than 10 fochim. Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, held like his father in one sheet and argued with one. Remember, Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah says you can fictionalize a beam. If the beam is made out of straw, we view it as if it was metal. So he paskins like that. But Rabbi Yehuda, remember, Rabbi Yehuda was one who also said that a koira above 20 is good because he learned it out from the Pesach HaUla, not the Pesach HaHechel. However, Rabbi Yehuda, so he's someone who agrees with his father in one concept and argues with his father in another. So if they're within 3, as long as they're within 10 tefachim and 20 amas, if they're within 3 tefachim each other, they're okay. As long as one is not above 20, one is below 10. Morgan Avram is machmir that it doesn't allow this cool of Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. Weiter. Rabbi Yehuda said, as long as the beam is a half wide, is a tefach wide, we don't care what kind of material it's made of. Master Rabbi Yehuda l'chiyah b'rav kamei d'rav. Rechav afal b'yishen bria. Right, that as long as it's wide, it's not, even though it's not strong. Amalei, Asniya, I learned Rechavu bria. It's got to be both wide and strong. One Rav Aloy Amarav, Rechav arba afal b'yishen bria. If it's 4 tefachim, it doesn't have to be strong enough to hold it. We fictionalize it. So in Echanami, Rechav arba or shiny. If it's 4, then it doesn't make a difference. In Echanami, even if it's not strong, it's kosher. Because we paskin before, not like Rav Yehuda, that has to be physically capable of holding a brick. We don't paskin like the sheet of Rav Yehuda. Haisa Shokash. So, for example, Rav Yehuda gave an example. If the koira was made out of straw, it's okay. My kamash malon. I mean, what's the chiddush here? I mean, a royin. You already told me that. Maybe it refers to the normal building material, like wood. But something like a straw, maybe we wouldn't say the concept of roin. Kamash Malon that we do. Then we said akuma, if it's bent, roin asokili pshuta. We see it as if it's straight. So pshita, kamash malon kedev Rav Zera, I'm Rav Zera. Let's say, for example, it's a bent. There's a bend in the middle of the beam, and it sticks out outside the mavui. Or for example, it's bent upwards, so that most of the beam is within 20 amas, but the bent portion goes above 20. Or it's right exactly at the 10 tefachim level. And the bent portion sags so that it's underneath 10 tefachim. So royin, we use a principle of royin, which means we fictionalize it. For example, if you can remove the bent portion of this beam and there's not a space of 3 tefachim more, then we just use lavud. And therefore, it's like we remove this bent portion and as if we had 2 separate beams emerging from each wall of the mavli, meeting in the midline, and then it's not a problem because of lavud, so ein tzarich lavi kor acheres. But if you remove the section and it's more than 3 tefachim im lav tzarich lavi kor acheres, then in a chanami this car won't work, and you got to bring another car. So the question says, "Wanami pshita." So why this also is something that we would understand from the basic law that we've learned. So the chiddush was when the majority of the koira is in the mavui and the bent portion is out. Maybe the people in the mavui are going to see that part of this koira is sticking out to the outside, and it will draw them to the outside, and they'll end up carrying from the mavui into Rishus HaRabim. Maybe I would aser kamash plan that we don't aser. So we then said that if you don't have a flat board, but you have a round piece of wood. A gula we see it as if it's square. Hasulam, again, why do we need this? We've already said the principle of royim. Seifa itzrichlei. The chiddush is to teach me this mathematical equation of kol sheyesh be'kefer shlosha tvachim yesh b'rochav tefach. If the circumference is 3, the diameter was going to be 1. But not immediately. How do you know this? So I don't know how Euclid probably just measured things, and they used math to derive these formulas. If it's Euclid who's the one who came up with this, 2 pi r, whatever we learned in geometry, Euclidean geometry. Here, the Chazal are going after a Torah source. So Shlomo Melech built a pool that the Kohanim would wash in. So it was Eser Amma Misfaso. It was from rim to rim 10 amas. So that's the diameter. Ogul Saviv was round. And it was 5 amas deep. V'kav shloishim b'ama, and its circumference was 30 amas. Yosef also Saviv. So the pasuk is the source for this 3-to-1 ratio. The Gemara says, but what about this? Is this measurement from the inner diameter of the pool or from the outer diameter? This pool was built, so the bottom of the pool was very thick, and the walls of the pool came up so that at the top it was just like thin as paper. The chsiv aviv tefach means the wall on the wall of the pool on the bottom was a tefach wide, but sfaso got to the rim. Then it says, Alpayim bas. A bas is 3 saw. So it could hold 6,000 saw. Now, we know a mikveh is 40 saw. So 40 into 6,000, you could have 150 mikvahs. That's just a calculation we could do. It was 150 mikvah pool. Freik the Gemara vayika mashu, but it's not. There's still some metal there. So ki kachoshev igavoy kachoshev. They measured from the inside diameter, not the outer diameter. That means from the inside. They measured 10, measured from the inside. Tanya Reb Chia Yam Shas Shloma Yamatzik Me'avachamish Mikvah Tahara. The mikvah that Reb Chia says, the mikvah could hold 150 mikvahs. Michdei mikvah kamahavi arboim saw. A mikvah has to hold arboim saw. Kidatanya v'rochatz is psoro b'mayim. If a person's tummy has to wash his body in water, the may mikvah. That's mayim, not any mayim. Kol psaro mayim shekol gufo ola behem. That means a 70-kilogram man will displace this amount of water. Kamahain ama al ama berum sholish amas. It's the volume of water that is an amma by 3 amas. Now, that's really a cube, not a sphere, right? An amma by an amma, but this is sort of, they took a circle and they inscribed a square around it. V'shir chachamim may mikvah arboim saw. The chachamim said a mikvah is 40 saw. Kama havaluhu. So, chamish mea gardi. Right, because they divided up this 1 by 1 by 3.
By the way, I have a color picture of the square and the round on top of it. I mean, I can see it.
They inscribed a circle within a square, basically.
Yeah, let's just take off the background, stopping it from coming in. Yeah.
There you go. Right. So that's a nice picture. So litlas me'ama, the ma'av v'chamshin chamshin, ba'arba me'av v'chamshin sagi, but that's only 450. Hanamili b'rivua. That's if it's square. But yam shas shlema agulaya, which so the square is going to have more. Is going to be more than the circle. Michte. Common meruba yosel. How much is a square bigger than a circle? Revia. 1/4. So la'arba ma. That means if you start off with 400, that means you can be 100 more. So lima esrim chamisha. So you're gonna have 125. Hani may have esrim chamisha, not 150. Tar mechazkel yam shas shlom shlosh shamas tachtonis mubos. Ushtam yonas agulas. Very interesting. They say that the pool was built. The bottom part of the pool was square. The top of it was circular. And therefore, when you need the ibchel samres, you can't say the opposite. The sfas agulas, because it's very clear that the top of the pool was round. So, ela emachada. Who says that it was, maybe it was only circular, the top 1 amma was circular, not what the Gemara wanted to say, that the shtayim elyonis were agulos. It says, lo saket daitich, tichsiv. The kicking point here is alpayim bas yochil. It said it's 2,000 bas. Now bas kama avishol shoim. Each bas is 3 saw. Dichsiv maser abat min hakor. Davle she self-agree. So it means 6,000. You have 6,000 saw. There's another puzzle that says it wasn't 2,000 bas, it was 3,000 bas. Whereas Zahula Gucha, that's like if you put like solid flour into such a pool, there would be a heaping measure of 3,000. But for liquid, it would just be 2,000. So now we know if you're taking solid volume and putting it into a thing, a container, the heaping measure above is 1/3. You can put 1/3 heaping measure above the total volume. Let's say you have a big armoire or a chest or kaveras akash or a beehive made out of straw, kaveras akani made out of reeds, ubor sfina alexandris or a boar. These are all very big items. An Alexandrian boar on a boat, even though they have legs, and they hold 40 solach, shein kurayim b'yavish, which is 2 kur dry to oirin. They're a kli, but because these are very big, you can't move them, so it's not called a kli, because they're not metaltal mole v'reikan. In order for a kli to be considered a kli to be kabul tum, it's got to be able to be carried empty and full. But something, a really large armoire, that it's even hard to carry it empty. And certainly when you're filled with dishes, you'd be impossible to carry it. It leaves from the Torah's kli. And okay, but that's we see this concept of Arboin saw Balach to be Karayim, and Arboin saw in Karayim is 60 saw. B'yavesh, you see something that holds 40 liquid can hold 60 dry. So you see that the extra heaping measure of dry above a volume is 1/3. Okay, Mishnah. So we described lechi, we described koira. So now the Mishnah is going to describe what's a lechi. L'chayin she'amru goyven asar tvachim. So a piece of wood that you tack to the side of the mov has to be 10 tvachim high. The rochban v'oivin kosher doesn't have to have any thickness. Rabbi Yossi Yomer rochban shloisha tvachim. We paskin like the Stam Mishnah, like the Tanakama, that it just has to be a mashu. The Gemara says, "L'chaim sham lematnan stama." Lemastan stama Rabbi Yezer. The fact that the Mishnah used the word l'chayayim, which is plural. Are you telling me that the Mishnah holds like Rabbi Yezer Dharma l'chayim? But you remember, we had a machlokes. Beis Shammai says you need a lechi and a korah. Beis Hillel says you need a lechi or a korah. Rabbi Yezer said you need 2 l'chayayim. So the fact that the Mishnah is saying l'chayayim, does it mean they pass like Yezer? No. My l'chayayim, it's like saying the word fish. Fish is fish. He's talking about fish in general, not that you need multiple fish. L'chayayin da'alma, you're asking me about l'chayayin because you're asking about lechis in plural. That's l'chayayin. I'll describe it, but not that I hold that you need 2 lechis. Well, how come if you're going to learn like that, the word korah was singular? You could have used also plural. My korah is korah dalma. So why didn't the Mishnah learn that? You know what? Those l'chayayin that Rabbi Yezrach argued, goyven asar tfachim. Whether you hold that you need 2, or whether you hold like you need 1, like the chachamim, the lechi has to be 10 tfachim, v'roichvan avin koshu, and it's in any kind of width. Kama koshu tani rabba afilu kechot asarvel, even like a thread. Tana learn in the Mishnah asa lechi l'chatzi mavu. Let's say you didn't put the lechi at the opening of the mavui. You only put the lechi sort of halfway in the mavui. So ein al l'chatzi mavui. You can only carry up to the lechi. You can't. The mavui is the whole mavui is not corrected. Only half of it is corrected. Where it says pshita. Well, of course. Don't say ein lo. You should say yesh lo chatzi mavui. The chiddush is he has a half mavui. It says hanami pshita. That's also davar pashu. How to say oh, maybe we should make a gzeira. If the lechi is placed halfway in the mavui, maybe we should be worried that people won't know the din and they'll carry the whole mavui. Kamash that no, you're allowed to use even half the mavui. See the picture in Rashi, put the lechi is halfway into the mavui. Amar Rabba, also lechi la mavui, bigbim and akarka shloisha. So the lechi has to be close to the ground. If it was lifted above the ground 3, Or shefligim makoso shlosha. It's not connected to the wall. It's separate from the wall. 3, lo asav lo klum. It's not a good lechi. And I feel Rabban Shimon Gamliel Damar Aminan Lavud. Remember, Shimon Gamliel holds that you got to be 4 away for it not to be lavud. So Rabban Shimon Gamliel would hold lavud in a normal case. But that only works up and down. Since if you place this, even let's say 3.5 tefachim above the ground, even Rabban Shimon Gamliel, who would hold lavud and drop it to the ground because he holds lavud extends to 4, even here he would agree because gdim boikimbo, because animals could go under such a mechitza. And therefore, he would not hold of that kula of up to 4 if it's not next to the ground. We paskin that way. According to Rava, Rabbi Yossi Amrachban Shloisha Tvachim. Rabbi Yossi argued with the Tanakama and said that the lechi has to be 3 tvachim wide. On Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Shmuel, ain't halach Rabbi Yossi. The halach is not like Rabbi Yossi. Lo behilmi v'lo b'lechayim. Hilmi is like is brine, where you want to dip your bread into something salty. So you're not allowed to make that on Shabbos. It's a gzeira. But we don't paskin like him regarding that. Amr le Ravuna Barchina bihilmi Amrit lan. You know what? You told me that halacha regarding hilmi, but b'lechaim lo Amrit lan. You didn't tell us the halacha regarding lechi. Ma'ishna bihilmi. Why did you tell me the halacha by hilmi? Because the pligi rabbanale. Because the chacham argued, and they say you're allowed to make hilmi. So that can't be the reason. Because l'chaim nami pligi rabbanale. But the chacham argue with Rabbi Yossi regarding l'chaim as well. Amr le shar l'chayayim. Mishum the koi Rebbe Kavose. The L'chayayim were different because Rebbe paskin like that as well. And maybe we would say you have to paskin like Rabbi Yossi in this case because Rebbe held like him. So we have to say no. Now, Rav Rachumi Masni Hachi. Rav Rachumi had a different girsa in this Gemara. On Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas B'Shmei Rav. Ein halacha Rav Yossi lo b'hilmi v'lo b'chayim. The halacha is not like Rav Yossi, not by the case of hilmi, not by l'chayim. Amr le Amrit. Did he say that? Amr lo. No, he didn't say that. Amr Rav. What do you mean Elohim? Amr lo Gemir Lamine. What do you mean? You did say it, and we learned it from you. Umay Tamakadar Bey. Why did he think that maybe he should change his mind? Because it should be Rav Yossi Nimuka Imo. We have a general principle throughout Shas that whenever Rav Yossi gives us halacha, we say the halacha is like him because he again had a very clear nimuko imo means tame reisiv maybe lo b'chol makom. He gave Rashi says he gave very good rayas to his words, so therefore they praised him. But in a chanami the halacha in this case is still not like Rabbi Yossi. What's the final halacha? Go see what the people do. And the people already were using a lechi of any, even a mashu. So the halacha became what the people did, which was not like what Rabbi Yossi said, 3 tefachim. Now, the Gemara is going to give us a similar story. Other people say, no, that story's on something else. If somebody drinks water because he's thirsty, what bracha does he make? Shakol niyeh b'dvaro. And Rav Tarfon Oimer, a different bracha. Rav Tarfon held, you said that prior to drinking water. Go see what the people do. Halacha is people make bar shakol before, and they make bar nefashos after. Okay. So we will learn, God willing, tomorrow night.